welcome to Decision 2026, QTV's flagship election program as we count down to the presidential election in December. So, I am Mamadou Mbodj. More than 30 years ago, during the 1992 United States presidential campaign, strategist James Carville coined a phrase that has become the most famous lines in modern politics. It's the economy, stupid. Even though we associate it with Bill Clinton, it wasn't meant as an insult. It was just to remind campaigners not to lose sight of what mattered most, the voters. So tonight we ask a simple question. How well has the NPP government managed the economy? Over the next 90 minutes, we'll move beyond campaigns and slogans to examine the evidence. We'll explore whether growth has translated into jobs, whether borrowing has delivered value, why the cost of living remains such a pressing concern, and what economic choices lie ahead before December, our elections. As always, we'll keep the discussion robust, respectful, and where possible free of economic jargon. I'm afraid otherwise I may have to ask the producer to give us subtitles, and we don't want that. Joining me as always are my resident panelists, Aliou Ceesay on my immediate left and Ibrahim Adabo on my far left. Gentlemen, welcome once again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mbodj. It's a pleasure to be back on the program, and we're looking forward to insightful and engaging conversations with the caliber of panelists that we have tonight.
Extraordinary. Mr. Dabo.
Thank you. A pleasure to be back again. And as Aliou said, we're looking forward to a very good discussion with this gentleman.
That's it. So now we begin. I will introduce them. Sitting on my immediate right, I didn't know, why do we automatically just go to the right all the time? It's Dr. Usman Gajigo, an economist and a member of Gambia for All party. Tonight, he will bring his professional expertise as well as the perspective of his party. And having him next to him, on his right, I have Honorable Suwaibu Toure. He is the Secretary General of PDOIS and National Assembly member for Woolly East. And now, to my left, in between Aliou Ceesay and Ibrahim Adabo, I have Mr. Mamadi Kurang, chartered accountant, educator, one-time executive secretary of the Janneh Commission. Gentlemen, welcome to the program. Yes, so, and if all goes well, we'll still be friends by the end of it all. Now, actually, we were supposed to be joined by somebody else from NPP. He's making his way over here. I should have really started with him. But it doesn't matter. I can start with Honorable Suwaibu Toure. Here, as the NPP government now, this term is coming to an end. How should we judge their economic record?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mbodj. That question is very thought-provoking. From my own angle, I would say it's a failure. It's an economic failure. The country is undergoing trying times. The earning capacity of the majority of Gambians who are farmers is getting lower and lower. The groundnut culture that was introduced by the colonialists is dying. Up to now, you would go to my communities, you will find groundnut with people which are not sold. So which means that they are beginning new fresh plantation again, which may not be also sold. So if you really go for tourism, you will see that since 2019, it has almost died. Investment is, which is foreign direct investment, is getting lower and lower. The government has taken a lot of loans to the extent that the IMF has in fact declared that Gambia cannot take loan without having a grant content in that loan. So which means we are blocked from that area as well. So if you look at all the areas, you'll begin to see that the loans that we are taking, the grants that we are envisaging are also going down. They would expect this number But then at the end of the year, you will see that you will not have that. So which means that we are in a situation where the government now has no option but to go in for, mortgaging our assets, what they call asset recycling. They have now asset recycled, the bridge at Farafenni Soma Bridge, or what you call Senegambia Bridge. And now they have gone into the ports with Al Bayrak. And the next stage they have gone to is to go to Gamtel Gamshal, kind of privatize almost 80% of it. So which means as we go, this government is not capable of managing the assets, managing the institutions that are established that will support the tax base to be able to create a budget that would be able to take care of the living conditions of the Gambian people. So from my own perspective, if we continue like that, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. That's my understanding.
Absolutely. We'll get into the details later. Dr. Gajigo, same question really. How should we assess?
Well, it's difficult really to add beyond what he has said. I think he captured Honorable Suhaib Toure. He has definitely captured the situation very well. Maybe next time you don't need a second economist here. No, I mean, again, there are a lot of angles you can look at here. If you ask the average Gambian today, how do you feel about the cost of living? I can guarantee you, 4 out of 5 people will tell you life is harder. Cost of living has gone up. Standard of living has gone down, by default, obviously. You don't have to look much further to see the dozens of youths living almost on a monthly basis, actually hundreds, I should be saying, who are risking their life to go. If opportunities here were abundant, we wouldn't be seeing that. The most important sector is agriculture, as he pointed out here. In fact, things have gone down. We have a situation now where our rice productivity is the lowest in all of ECOWAS. Our groundnut output is lower than that of during the Jammeh regime and far lower than what it was during the Jawara regime. The share of land that is irrigated is very minuscule, hasn't changed much. In fact, it's far lower than what it was as a share of arable land in the 80s. By almost every metric you look here, things are not going well. We could talk broadly at the level of macroeconomy. Government likes to boast that GDP has grown by 5.7%. Now, I know we don't want to be too arcane or technical in our discussion, but that GDP growth, when you account for population growth, you remove it there. Gambia, at that level of growth that Adama Barrow's government is boasting about, Gambia would still remain a poor, low-income country for another generation. So if they actually know what they are boasting about, they are boasting about a failure. If Gambia is to remain a poor, low-income country for another generation, another 25 years, who can count that as economic success? But forgetting about all those technical details, the key thing here is the cost of living. The average Gambian, when they go to the market, are they experiencing lower cost of living or higher cost of living? It doesn't matter what the inflation rate says. You can go to the doctor can tell you you don't have you don't have an infection, but if you are feeling fever, you don't need a doctor to tell you that. I don't need somebody from the Ministry of Finance to tell me the inflation rate is going down when our sisters and brothers, when they go to the market, they face rising cost of living. So by the most important sector in the economy, which is agriculture, by the plight of our young Gambian workers, our youth, the fact that they are willing to risk their life day in and day out, that tells you all you need to know, that our economy is not doing well. And as Honorable Toure here has said, you don't have to really reach for any other words. The simple answer is that, giving a grade to the Adama Barrow regime in terms of the economy is a clear F. Yeah.
So for you, it's an F. Mohamed Kurang of the UDP, now your assessment, sir. We've heard from PDOIS, we've heard from GFA, now we want to hear from UDP.
Well, I think, in my opinion, the Gambia is on 10 years of Adam Barrow has been a very terrible economically, because I think every economy, you talk about growth. Why do you talk about growth? You talk about growth because you want to use growth to pull your population out of poverty. And you know, if you look at the newly industrialized countries in Asia, Malaysia, Singapore, Taiwan, you know, they were measuring in terms of how the economy was growing and the number of people that were getting out of poverty. If you look at China, when they said we take out 1 billion people out of poverty, right, in a period of 30 years or 40 years, I mean, they're talking about growing the economy in order to take people out of poverty. In 1965, this was the debate. The debate was whether Gambia could be sustainable and how it could be sustainable. Then the argument was that groundnut farming or peanut farming or generally farming was the base of the economy, and that was what we would use after independence to take poverty out of this country. That was the theory. That was the basis on which the economic structure was built. Then what did the PPP do? I mean, they concentrated on, like the honorables have said, they concentrated on areas like agriculture with an objective in mind, that peanut was the cash crop. It was, in fact, paying most of our national debts, right, and serving as our foreign reserves from 1965 all the way to the early 1980s. So for a period of 20 years, this country was economically dependent as far as foreign currency was concerned on agriculture. Tourism was still there, but it was in the margins. It was after the 80s that it became part of the central focus of the PPP government. So what did they do structurally? To grow, you have to do two things. You have to create jobs, and you have to be able to control inflation, because otherwise you create jobs, the economy will overheat. So to create jobs in 1965 to 1985, agriculture was promoted, right? Peanut was promoted as a cash crop. And then the government came up with another plan, which was to strengthen the parastatals. As Honorable have just said, you have to see where those two structural factors are at the moment. The cash crop, which is the peanut. It was not in 1965 that Gambia started trading on peanuts. It was 18-something or 16-something. For more than, let's say, 200 years, this country has been trading peanuts for cash, even when the British were here. And look at the story that the Honorable just gave you today. Up to today, there are farmers in this country who cannot get their money for peanuts that they sold in the last rainy season, and the current rainy season is already here. That has never happened in this country. So what does that tell you? The economy has never been terrible for the farmer like this. For 200 years, when the British were here, they buy the peanuts and they send it with no issue. They give the people their cash. The PPP government for 30 years, they take your peanut and give you cash. The APRC government for 22 years, they take the peanuts and give you cash. It is the NPP government that is not able to collect farmers' peanuts and give them cash. Instead, they said there are agents. I heard the agricultural minister speaking the other day. He said, it's not our problem, it's the problem of the agents. When has it become the problem of the agents? For 200 years, every government, including the colonial government, was able to take the burden of the farmers. That this was the symbol of the economy of the country. And the NPP government has failed. You know where they failed economically, drastically and dangerously? It is the parastatals. The parastatals came in, Gamtel, NAWEC, I mean, Gambia Ports Authority, the Social Security and Housing Finance Corporation. These are our $1 billion parastatals. Each one of them is $1 billion even more. Now, what was the purpose? To generate growth. Still the same topic. Generate growth and create employment and take people out of poverty. That was why we had Gamtel. That was why we had NAWEC. That was why we had GPA and GPMB. Today, all of those projects are failing drastically under the Barrow government.
You've promoted your introduction very well there.
Thank you.
Now, Aliu, with us now, when we listen to what these three gentlemen have said, and perhaps some of us will read IMF reports, World Bank reports, and all, it wasn't entirely glowing, I wouldn't say that, but they've recorded certain improvements in certain areas and perhaps not so in other areas. So how do you see this?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mboch. Once again, it's a pleasure to be here, and I wish Kebalang will have been here by now to be able to defend most of the economic policy of the NPP. He should be here, by the way, just for our viewers to understand that he should be here to be able to defend most of the current government's, economic policies. But to start with, I have heard from, this learned, gentlemen, trying to, give us a breakdown as to what their text is regarding the current economy in the way and manner in which the NPP government has been able to manage the economy. To start with, we should also not just try to look more on what has not gone well. I think for someone who is watching will say, okay, at least under the current government, according to the IMF and all these things, they're telling, okay, the economy, the GDP is growing like around 6% of last year, 2025. Of course, there was a inflation has gone down, according to Central Bank, 7.6% as of June of this year, and all that. But when you look at, what's been happening, yes, the country is highly indebted as we speak. Just around $13 billion of this year's budget is going into debt servicing. But on the other hand, one will say, most of these loans that the government has acquired under the Barrow administration is being used to, bring about developments. They will, cite roads, even though, yes, they will say most of these roads are funded, through local funds. But equally, the Battle Harding Highway and so many other projects, the energy projects, the University of the Gambia in Faraba, are all funded, using loans. So one will defend and say, okay, yes, the government has taken so much loans, even though some of the loans are inherited from the previous government and all that. Yes, we have to accept that, yes, some development has been registered. But in terms of the debt increasement, that's a worry for me. And the other thing, yes, one can say the inflation has gone down by 7.6%, or the GDP is doing well, but for someone living in Nyamanari in Basse doesn't care about what the GDP is 6% or inflation 7%. What they know is that how much is the cost of a bag of rice? How much can I pay to get a bag of rice in my house? That is their main concern. But equally also, I had Mr. Kunan talk about most of the SOEs that that have been dead. Most of them, they have been like a liability to the government. But we have seen the government also doing an effort with the establishment of the State-Owned Enterprise Commission, which, to be honest, is doing well. We have seen now most of these SOEs are now paying dividends. Just a month ago, we saw almost like 6 SOEs paying dividends of amounting to $137 million to the government. And also the private sector. Yes, under the current government, we have seen there's that renewed, investment trust from the private sector. Now, private sector is doing well. Unlike previously where they were controlled, but now we are seeing more companies coming in trying to invest in the country. The other thing, agriculture for me, yes, the current government will say, we've invested millions of projects into the agriculture sector, but sustainability has always been a problem. You go back to most of these projects maybe 5 years ago, you go back there and you wouldn't even know. There's nothing to show up to say, okay, this project was implemented here. Sustainability has been a problem. And I believe governments will invest more in the agriculture sector, because if you're telling me, okay, every year you're spending like $80 million just to import rice in a country like the Gambia, then something is fundamentally wrong. And yes, it's true that there are so many projects being implemented under the Ministry of Agriculture, but the impact on sustainability for me is a problem.
All right. Mr. Davo, introduce yourself.
Thank you. I think we've started on a very strong footing, and this gentleman here are making a strong case, And as Ali said, I hope the representative of the government is here, probably to shed light on some of these issues. And also,
will call him
yes, and also make a strong case. Yes, he should also make a strong case on behalf of the government as to why they believe, some of these policies or initiatives that they have taken in terms of the economy of the Gambia are in fact the right initiatives or the right steps to take. But I want to come to Mr. Gajigo in a moment, Doctor. But first to something that Honorable Ture and Mamadi had made mention of, the groundnut issue. Okay, the groundnut as a cash crop and exchanging groundnut for cash. All right, there is a famous saying that we need to decolonize our economic structures. So my worry is in 2026, should we be talking about exchanging groundnut for cash or value addition to groundnut so that we can sell a product outside the country? So this is my worry. So if too much emphasis is put on exchanging groundnut for cash in 2026, so it means we are still moving backward. So what should we do in that situation to ensure that there is value added to groundnut so that we don't just exchange it for cash, but instead now we have a finished product that we can sell outside the country so that we can attract a lot of revenue from other countries. So this is what I want two of you.
I think for me, just to add to what you said, the other thing also is the way and manner in which our dollar is depreciating.
Yes.
It is really worrying.
Yes.
The way the dollar is depreciating, not just to the pound sterling, the dollars, but even the CFA is something that is really worrying to me. And I think these are all things that, we should look into, and then, much work needs to be done to ensure, our dollar is able to survive. Otherwise, I'm afraid.
Yeah,
the direction we are taking as far as the depreciation of the dollar, Mr. Kurang. I don't know what you guys think as the chief economist.
That is
but there was something you put to them.
Yes,
exactly.
That's why I wanted two of them to explain to me in 2026, should we be talking about exchanging groundnut for cash or should we be talking about value addition in order to export a finished product that is made out of groundnut? First, the two of them. Then I would want Dr. Gajigo to explain. He made something. He made mention of something when he was speaking. He said the Gambia should not boast of a 5.9 increment or growth in the economic sector. In fact, it is a failure. So I want you to explain this to an ordinary voter. Okay, what do you mean by that statement? Because we're saying the economy is increasing, inflation is going down. So why do you think that 5.9% increment is in fact nothing to boast about, considering that the Gambia is a low-income country? That's what I want you to explain after Mr. Ture and Mr. Kora.
And my question is,
yes,
the question you raised to me,
why should we be talking about exchanging groundnut for cash instead of value addition in 2026?
yes, I'll tell you, my party has been advocating for value addition since 1986, since the inception. We believe that just growing cash crop and selling that cash crop to colonial or externals, two things are there. One, you will not get value for money by just selling cash crop, the crop itself, because the crop has we have not added any value. The rule is that if you add value to your product, then you determine the price of that product. But if you just produce cash crop and sell it like that, then the person who is buying it is the one who is negotiating the price. So the prices that our farmers are receiving now are actually prices that come from those who are buying, purchasing from them. You understand? But if we add value only, we are going to determine the price. Now, since colonial times, we have been selling groundnut. We are controlled at that time. But when you take your independence and you want to maintain food self-sufficiency and you want to maintain some degree of economic reliance, you need to be able to add value not only to one crop, but to all the crops that you are producing in your country. You have cashew here, you need to add value. You are producing mangoes. You can see all the mangoes that are being spoiled in the country. You need to add value to that. But how many mango juice, mango this, mango that we bring flavors and all this that we have imported, instead of producing that? You have fish in the ocean, you have fish in the river. You need to add value to all that. So every product that we have, we must make effort to add value, especially groundnut, because groundnut has been our cultural crop. It has become a traditional crop. Like he said, since the 1980s, 80s, we have been producing groundnut. So by now, we should have targeted groundnut production to be our comparative advantage, to ensure that we develop groundnut to all levels and then export it. And that is what is going to give us the foreign exchange that we require. But what is happening now is that we are not adding value to our crops, and our exports are very low. I'll tell you, the exports...
But Honorable, the point is made very clear.
So it's clear.
Value addition. How would the PDOIS government, how would you have added value?
Yes, the PDOI government would come up with a cooperative plan. Our plan is to come up with a cooperative bank where we are going to put, for example, 5 billion in a year. And once you put that 5 billion, then the processors can come there and take and then create their processing plants. The farmer can even take from the cooperative and do more production. And then you have people who are engaged in commerce can also come, and then because it must be linked. It's a chain link. It's production, processing, and then exports.
So the 5 billion,
so that's how it should
5 billion, I take it, dollar, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Where would it have come from? Where would you get the 5 billion from?
You have a budget of 50 billion. You have a budget of 50 billion. That is our budget.
National budget.
National budget. Huh? To take 5 billion from that, is that worrying?
No, what I mean is, because 50 billion have 100 billion, but you have to distribute.
No, I know.
So you may take from, you take from one sector.
I am saying, if you want to do investment, you have to start the pain before you can enjoy. You must invest. If you refuse to invest, you will not be able to get returns. So it must start with investment. And when you are investing as a businessman, let's say as a businessman, you know that when you are taking it out, it is with pain. But when it started bringing returns, then we are smiling. So we must give priority to what will develop the economy. You understand? And what will develop the economy, we have all stated, is to ensure that agriculture takes off. Not only to produce crops, but to also process them and then export them. But if we are not ready to do the necessary investment, and we must start from small. 5 billion is a very small amount. I am saying every year you can add something to it. Every year you can add something to it. As a cooperative bank,
no, I've got your point. I've got your point, sir. I've got your point there. We've got so many to cover. And he asked you a question as well. Then we'll come to you. There was another question.
That question was for him.
Okay. All right. Now your turn, Mr. Quran. Sorry.
At the beginning, I said something about structure. And I think every government, when you come to power, even before you start anything, you start thinking about how will my policies, right, and how will I try to structure this economy in terms of the appropriate policies that I have. And what he said, every government that wants to create something obviously have to invest. Not only invest in the industries, but also to invest in the human resources. Yes. The UDP government talks about that regularly. But what I would like to mention here, in 1965 when we came, right, and they created all these parastatals. They were not created out of the blue. They were created to support a certain economic structure that we had in our policies, right? We said groundnut was the base, but we had GPMB and cooperative, which was about buy the peanuts, right, take it to the Denton Bridge and process it into at least some kind of industrial good that will increase the value. They were producing oil, and then they were producing other things. So what the next government would have done is to equally invest. When they created GPMB, Gambia Telecoms, and Social Security and NAWEC, they also structured the education system. It was going into housing. They started back arts to people. But the housing sector now is completely left to speculators and private investors.
So now let's move on. I get your point. I get your point.
No.
So how would you do it differently? How would the UDP do it differently?
Yeah, I mean, people say you go back to basics. And the basics are there. They're developing an economy and moving the Gambian economy from a poor, backward economy to an industrialized economy. It's not like reinventing the wheel. It's not rocket science. You understand?
Why is the whole of Africa having such a huge difficulty?
No, but
essentially, the whole of the continent is having such a massive difficulty.
But to be frank,
isn't that true?
To be frank,
generally, really.
To be frank, Gambia is one of the most backward economies in West Africa.
Well, today I read that actually the way we bounce back from COVID and how the economy has been doing, recently in West Africa, we've sort of been doing quite well, according to IMF, World Bank, and these reports.
You see, they create statistics. And you know what's the problem with this statistics? When Macky left, what happened? They realized that in Senegal, they had so many billions of debts. When Yaya Jammeh left, Adama said the same thing, that Yaya Jammeh left behind several billions of debts. Where do you think is the problem? The statistics, the false information that was being filtered to the IMF, and they had no way of proving it wrong.
So
until when there is a change of government.
So we shouldn't trust IMF reports and World Bank
depend on the
reports.
statistics. So instead, let's depend on the actual variables. And what are those actual variables? Go to Liberia, go to Sierra Leone and ask, how many of your young people are risking their life on the Atlantic Ocean?
Okay, just quickly.
So that is a tangible
No, but
thing.
quickly.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm prepared to ignore IMF.
Yeah.
I'm prepared to ignore World Bank.
Yes.
So what metrics would you use
Yes.
to make your case?
What I'm giving you an example of a metric. An
But
example.
this isn't a metric. Measured how?
Let me show. It's a metric.
How would
it
you
can
measure
be
it?
measured.
How is it measured?
I said an economy needs to grow in order to eradicate poverty. And to grow, you can never grow. No economy has ever grown where you don't create jobs.
But they just said 5.9%.
No, wait a minute.
What
if
are we
you
talking
are
about?
creating jobs, what is the result of creating jobs? If you are creating jobs, the citizens of that country, the young people of that country are happy to stay and work. But if the young people are going
That's
in
a
their
loaded-
large
that's a very
numbers,
loaded statement you've made there. Very loaded.
That's a metric. The metric is how many young Gambians are staying for jobs and being absorbed, right? And how many of them are living hopelessly through the back way. Look at the accidents. Even we don't know even the government doesn't know the amount of people that are running away and dying in sea. But we know the number of people that the government takes is visible. The only visible employment I see Barrow government creating is uniform men, policemen, PIU, and immigration.
Mr. Kurang,
Where
I have to be
else are
honest,
they creating
you still
jobs?
haven't
All
given
the
me a metric.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter.
No, I gave you a metric. I said number one.
What's the measurement? How do we measure? What are the numbers?
Okay, I want to settle this down to a very simple thing. I said growth. Do you agree? That in order to grow,
But the number
I'm coming.
is the
Logically.
5.9 growth GDP.
Yes.
That's the number. So give me another number.
Well, I already saw you the problem. I already showed. Yeah, I want to just land, Honorable. I already showed him the problem of the numbers. And he accepts the problem of the numbers because there is evidence for it.
Give me any.
No, but
what are you relying on?
Where is
I mean, yes, I get news stories.
yeah, but what I'm telling you,
if
where
I may-
is the money of the farmers? Is that not a metric?
It is.
I mean, yes.
No, the part we are actually talking about, I mean, the metrics don't have to be like GDP growth and others. But what I'm confident actually taking the government at their figures.
Okay.
With 5.9%, I will tell you why that is actually a terrible number for the Gambia. Today, if you are talking about an advanced country, or even a country like China, Japan or US, even a number like 3% growth rate is excellent. But when you are talking about a poor country, that is at the lowest rung of the ladder, that is terrible because what you need is catch-up growth. So 5.9%, that is the overall growth of the economy, not per capita. Okay, yes. The population is growing at what rate? Close to 3%, 2.5%.
Yes.
So you have to subtract that from 5.9. You end up with a number that's roughly 3%. So that is the income growth, 3%. Now, what is the inflation rate right now? They are celebrating saying the inflation rate has dropped down to around how many percent?
Single figures, single digits.
Yes. So I want always, when we're talking about economy, to bring it down to the level of the average person.
Absolutely.
So we said now the income per person is growing at the rate of 3% now, right? The cost of living is growing at the rate of what? 7%, because that's the inflation that the average person faces. So you see the problem.
Yes.
Your cost of living is double your income. So tell me, what do you think is happening to your standard of living? If your cost of living, the cost that the average person faces is double the income growth, tell me, is that a very good metric?
And the 5.9%
Yeah.
is how many companies contribute to
Honorable-
5.9%?
Yeah. Honorable wanted to come in. Please, yes, just quickly, Honorable.
I want to say that when you go to developing countries, the growth rate is usually high. When you go to developed countries, the growth rate is low. If you look at the growth rate in the US, for example, it will not pass 2 point something, But for Africa, it's 6.7 point. That does not matter. That does not necessarily also mean that the life of the people is getting better. It just simply means that the money in the country is increasing. How? In Gambia, the way our wealth is growing, it's not because government is doing any particular effort, but because of the remittances. As I tell you, the groundnut sector has died. The tourism sector is not growing. Since 2019, we have not recovered. You know, what else are we gaining? It's only remittances which are increasing. And it is remittances that is creating this 5.9, mainly this 5.9. In addition to, if you come to their, like I say, Africa 50, the non-tax that we have been receiving, you know, in 2024, 2025, we've received $100 million from Africa 50 because of the
Senegambia Bridge.
Yes, Senegambia Bridge. But last year, it has reduced, you know, it has reduced drastically. And if we see 2026 also, it is reducing because as we go along, the Africa 50 will not be disbursing that amount to them. And that is the money they have taken to develop 5-kilometer road here, 10-kilometer road there, and look at every constituency and put kilometer roads there. You understand? Just to be able to try to come back to power. Because the people definitely want roads. Yeah. And therefore, if you put all this money, 3-point-something billion, into road construction, therefore you will have roads everywhere, and then people will admire it, they will bring back Barrow because of that. So, but we should not be doing things to stay in power. We should be doing things to grow the economy, to ensure that the life of our people becomes better and better.
Sustainable. And Mr. Mbouch, the key metric, if you insist on metrics, we ask you simple. Somebody mentioned the foreign currency here, the falling rate of the dollar say.
Yeah.
What was the rate of the dollar say at the time that Barrow was taking on? And 10 years later, you can see that there is a drastic fall. That's a key metric. There is nowhere, right, where your foreign currency or your local currency is losing value drastically against foreign currencies, and you are an import-dependent country. And then you said your economy is normal. It means your economy is suffering.
Yes. Gentlemen, come in.
Yes, so for me, I mean, just to come back to the issue of the employment, I believe as a country, we should still do more. I mean, Mr. Kuran just mentioned if there's any employment that the government has created, it's maybe police, immigration, and all that. But I think we also need to, you know, open up the doors for more industries. We need an industrialized economy to be able to create more jobs for people. Not just create jobs, but create jobs that can pay well. Yeah. I mean, some people are...
But remember recently with the labor force, GBOS, the labor force survey, where they said that employment has increased, and unemployment, obviously, the corollary has decreased. What do you make of that, though?
Employment has increased, but look at the earnings as well. You can be employed, yet you know, you're underemployed because you know you can wake up every day, got a job, but your earnings.
Yeah, because when they say employment has increased, they are building a flyover and there are 2,000 people employed, and then they are building another bridge there, which are just 6 months projects. They are not sustainable. I mean,
so Mr. Nava, I'm sure the 2,000 people didn't mind.
So, you know, quickly before I come to employment, I was expecting, for example, our panelists to make reference to the Gambia Food Processing Company. At Saro, for example. Before, there was a lot of value addition there, you know, groundnut processing to have groundnut oil in the Gambia. So now, in fact, we are not even sure if it is a public company anymore because in such a certain way it is handled by a private individual. So I believe at the level of the National Assembly, we could have done something better to ensure that, you know, such institutions remained what they are, or their capacities are increased in order for us to add value to that groundnut that you all made mention to, you know, as one of the goals, the gold of the Gambia. So in the absence of that, in the absence of that reference, maybe I can jump into the employment.
No, you know, I can tell you,
the
food processing, whatever, name you have, they have come up with a plan. To do precisely what we are trying to say, to select some crops. They call them core crops, and rice is not part of that core crops. But you have groundnut is part of it, and you have maize also is part of it. So it is those core crops that they want to concentrate on, focus on, develop them so that it can be processed. But the problem we have now is that the amount the state is putting in is not sufficient to even kickstart that program. So which means that they need to definitely look at it to see how do you kickstart that program? I believe if it is kickstart properly, it can trigger industrialization in that domain.
Yes, I wanted to say actually to address your question about agriculture, because you asked the question, a very good one. Why are we still talking about groundnut when we should be talking about processing?
Yes.
Actually, they are linked. Yeah. There is no country that goes straight to industrialization, processing, without having good agricultural productivity. Yeah. Now, what do I mean by that? Gambia right now, what is our agricultural productivity? We can look at rice or groundnut. If you come, rice for instance, our productivity in the Gambia is 1 hectare of land, you get on average about 1 ton. In Senegal, our neighbor, 1 hectare of land, you get about 4 tons, which is the world average. In the 1990s, we and Senegal were at the same level in terms of productivity. From 1990 onwards, Senegal increased, they doubled from 2 tons per hectare to 4 tons. Gambia went from 2 tons per hectare in the 90s to less than 1 ton per hectare. Currently, we have the lowest rice productivity in all of West Africa. The point I'm trying to make is the following. You cannot go and do processing unless you are able to produce more in a given quantity of land. Because you first need to have high productivity and so that your processors do not face very high cost. In the Gambia right now, that is missing. So you cannot even put a plan in for agro-processing unless you address agricultural productivity.
Okay, that's very interesting, Mr. Gajigo. Yes. Fantastic point there. But what you've pointed out, from the 1990s, something went wrong in the sense that Senegal surged forward, we didn't.
Yes.
So now Barrow took over in 2017, took over some terrible state of affairs. So you want to tell me that you haven't seen any improvement or a change of direction from what was going on before he came into office?
In fact,
because these days we tend to be hearing all sorts of news about value addition projects.
I can talk in numbers and give you very specific examples. What has happened is actually the productivity created under this government. Yes. The productivity under the Ajam administration was far higher than what it is now.
What was it? Give us the figures between these two.
Let me give you something on groundnut. The amount of area we cultivate in groundnut has gone down a bit. But you know what was our average production under the whole administration of Dawda Jawara? Was over 112,000 tons of groundnut. The average production between 1994 and 2016 on Yaya Jammeh was 99,000 tons. The average production under Adama Barrow is less than 50,000 tons. It's less than half of what it was under Yaya Jammeh.
Yes.
So in other words, our production level and productivity all collapsed. Not because they inherited something bad, they made it worse.
Well, they inherited and made it worse.
No.
Is that what you're saying?
So the drop, I remember the drop from the Jawara regime to the Jammeh regime is from 112,000 to 99,000. That is far lower than the drop from the Jammeh regime to the Barrow regime. So we went from over 90,000 tons to less than 50,000 tons. Yeah. So the point I'm trying to get to is the following. Before you talk about food processing, whether state-owned or private sector-owned, you need to have significant productivity. The supply of that intermediate good has to be high and at affordable price. Unless you do that, why is it that despite the fact that we have Saro, where you have groundnut milling, we are still importing over 90% of the vegetable oil that we consume? Despite the fact that we have a state-owned enterprise that's supposed to do this. You can bring all of the machines to do rice milling here. It would make no economic or financial sense to import paddy rice, unmilled rice from Asia or other African countries and mill them here. You need to produce it here locally, mill it, sell it locally or export it. In other words,
but isn't that easier said than done?
No, it's not. Let me give an example why it's not easier said than done. Senegal, over the past 2 decades, Senegal went from a rice productivity of 2 tons per hectare to over 4 tons. At Senegal's level of productivity, Gambia, we would be importing only 30% of the rice we consume. Currently, due to our lagging productivity, we import 90% of the rice.
So do you reckon that the situations are similar to the extent that one can make such comparisons?
I worked in ADB. When I was there, we funded a lot of rice projects in many African countries. I was in rice projects in Senegal, around Podo area, where I went all of the... There is nothing in Senegal that is being done there that is not financially, economically, and technically unfeasible in the Gambia. Okay. The people are the same, the climate is the same, everything is the same.
Mr. Kurang, you've made the point.
Not only have I observed the economy, but I have witnessed rice production in the 70s and 80s when I was very young. And there is a remarkable difference, even from the point of view of a layman. What was in place in terms of agriculture between 1970s and 80s and 1990s and what is happening now, the government engagement. We even had plots or areas of rice fields in the Gambia, in the CRR, that we call Chinese. Because there was, I said, when you decide and you want to grow your economy, you have to take systematic, deliberate policy decisions that will support your investment and your agriculture. I mean, agriculture is just like football. You cannot put the best players in the field and you don't have physios, you don't have medical staff, you don't have refreshments. Your team is going to perform very badly. The PPP government, right, whatever was there in 1965, had all those auxiliary stuffs. They had SAPO, they have agricultural institute, where students could go and learn free. Today, they pay in order to get an agricultural diploma. And even after paying, nobody cares about them anymore. That only started 10 years ago. So you know that all those support structures, the school system, the government policy, the cooperation with the international partners,
when did
all
SAPO
those
go
things.
down? Was it during this period? SAPO's been going down for a long time.
Well, because recently, I mean, he's quite right about that, because I was at SAPO. On more than 2 occasions, I've been putting pictures of SAPO on Facebook. Literally, where people used to live, under the veranda, there's grass growing. The whole place is completely dilapidated. This is supposed to be the brain of our rice cultivation. It is completely dilapidated. So it means that, you know, I'm sure Demba Sabali hasn't stepped foot in that area. No. You know,
gentlemen, you come in. I'm sure somebody can say that. Well, maybe fine, but there are new projects coming up. Korea with Korea.
If you don't mind, just 1 minute.
It's not about foundation laying.
Very quickly.
Yeah. No, I mean, you mentioned projects. I want to give an example, a concrete example of an area not too far from its constituency, but it's in a different one, Woolly. There's this place called Limbambulu, where the ADB gave a loan of 500 million to the government for rice cultivation, so that rice would be cultivated there, both rainy season and dry season. It used to be cultivated by the Chinese, as he was mentioning before, and they were doing very well. This is an area of 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer by 500 meters, 50 hectares. The contract, the Arabaro government went and gave the contract to Abubakar Jawara. Not only did he fail to develop the area, he actually destroyed the rice field. I was in Limbambulu last year, in the middle of the rainy season, out of an area of 50 hectares, the area that was actually having rice cultivation was less than 10 hectares. They actually destroyed it. But we have to pay that loan in the next 30 years. And they went and took a second loan from the Islamic Development Bank to go and fix that problem. And right now, as we speak, they are on it.
And this is all on record, the loans and all of that.
This is on record. It's on record. It's indisputable. I wrote about it, and not a single one from government disputed a single fact.
Well, and PP, you have a right to reply.
And that's why I said I just came along was here to be able to counter some of these claims.
He ran away.
No, you can't say that. You can't say that. Circumstances.
Yes, circumstances. But like I said, I mean, for me, when you look at the agriculture sector, yes, my colleague Ibrahim did talk about value addition and all that. But like Dr. Gaji just rightly mentioned, when I was growing up in the village, I mean, what we used to see as far as agriculture is concerned, especially groundnut, is no more. It's like the sector is not as lucrative as it used to be back then. You know, is it because of rural urban migration? Like, no one's in the village now to engage into agriculture. And we all knew how it was back then. And I think this is where the issue is now. I mean, we need more investment to ensure, farmers are provided with all the farming equipment they need, but also fertilizer is also provided at a much more, cheaper than what it is now, 1,100, to ensure people are motivated to go back to agriculture. Because agriculture is very key.
Thoughts, sir. You come back.
Yeah.
Help you.
Mr. Dabo.
Yes, so I want to first, let me validate Dr. Gajigo's point that last week, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Minister of Finance, Dr. Keta, said that the government of the Gambia, out of the 140 billion loan the Gambia has, $27 million of that was taken as a loan in order to invest in the agricultural value chain. So he made mention of that last week in one of his deliberations. So probably that would validate the loan that you made mention about agriculture. But the point I wanted to make earlier was on the employment. Okay, because we've seen GBOS last week or so, published the first quarter, report of the labor force survey. And then, yes, 85% or so, was jobs were created by the informal sector, and then construction, forms a larger chunk of that informal employment that is created. And again, we could say, the government said also before that they've had about $148 million loan in order to construct the OIC road. And now, they said as a result, the impact of the OIC road now, property values has increased along that line. There's a lot of construction activity, and construction is creating a lot of jobs. Now, that argument is made. Okay, so how would you as gentlemen counter that argument? To say we've taken loans on behalf of the country, we've invested them into some infrastructural projects, and those infrastructural projects in a certain way are creating effects that create employment for young people in the Gambia.
I really want to tell you that informal, when you say informal, from our present setting, it's a woman sitting on the roadside selling get the stuff, selling oranges and all this. Those people are just looking for their survival. On the normal circumstances, you don't call that a job. You understand? So when we talk about job, that's what he said. Something that can pay you so that you'll be able to take care of your family's everyday needs, basic needs. At least even if it is ending there, you can say you have a job. But somebody who's going to sell, get us up on this road because there is a road mate, that type of thing, you don't consider that. So what the statistics has done is to calculate all those things and put it. But the reality is that the number of what they call underemployment is what is higher. You have the farmer who would work for 4 months, rainy season. And then after the 4 months, just go and sit down. Has no work to do. You have a hotel worker who works for 6 months. And then after 6 months, the hotels are closed. The person goes and sit down, and so on and so forth. So you have a lot of young people who are into that, and then the rest of it is that they are not employed. Majority of Gambian youths want to go outside because they feel that even if they work here, the earning that they make is so minuscule that it cannot take care of their basic needs. Not to talk about helping them to take care of their elders. So this is the situation. So when we are calculating about employment, we should not really be able into going into people who are selling small things. And those are informal sector, which is important. If we develop them, it will become very important. But we are not. How many of them on the roadside have actually been giving capital to do what they are doing?
Yes, and construction per se, you cannot just conclude that because we have taken billions and we are putting it in road construction, it means we are creating jobs, right? We are also interested in the efficiency and the accountability of those funds, because we know if you take $1 billion and then there are leakages out of it, it is not going to have the calculated effect that you desire. And also, nobody can rule out the fact that the construction industry...
Can you qualify leakages?
Well, when I say leakages, what it means is that you have a contractor and then he is given a contract and something passed under the table. That's an example of a leakage.
Allegedly.
That's, well, I'm giving you an example. I didn't even give you anybody that I've taken. I said if there are leakages. And in this country we know, right? However,
So
that is just an example. Another example
No,
is...
you've made your point.
Okay,
When you
but
say
then now,
if,
yes.
you use the conditional.
Exactly.
You
So
haven't said
now I'm
that
coming,
it is happening.
to the crux of my argument, right? Not only in the Gambia, in so many other countries in Africa, remittances form a great part of the foreign exchange that we have, right? Now, just like we said in the cash crops, well, whether it's cash crop or process, our objective is increase in foreign reserves, exchange reserves. Now, the remittances in the Gambia is our key factor of foreign exchange reserves. Also, most of the construction in the country is due to that investment that comes from the diaspora in terms of building and financing construction. That's not necessarily a government-created employment that you can say in the construction industry. But obviously, we know the construction industry is one of the most vibrant industries in the Gambian economy.
Absolutely.
And we know why. What is the reason? It is more for because of the diaspora investment rather than government investment.
Point well taken.
Yes.
So now let's just tilt a little. The cost of living. Well, you can address it together. Just hold on to that too. You address this together. The cost of living. When I read some of these economics papers, they tell us that most of it was really imported. Because we rely so much on products made from outside, about 90% or so. So what is it that any party can do, at least in the short term? One can give us solutions about the longer term. We have to invest in this, we have to invest in that. Everybody knows that. But surely when you have a plan, short term, intermediate term, long term.
Exactly.
Intermediate term, short term, immediately. Right now, in power, what would GFA do?
Very good question. When we talk about cost of living, we have to ask ourselves what is the what is making the cost of living go up? We are an import-dependent economy. What are our biggest import items? The biggest one, we can put that out of the way, is energy, fuel. We don't produce fuel right now. We have no choice. We must import that. We must import. If you remove fuel, what do you have? The next several items are all food. Starting with the number one item, which is rice. We import 90% of the rice that we consume. And as I told you, we have the agroclimatic condition. We have a river that can irrigate. We have people who actually used to be more productive than they are now. What is missing? The public sector investment to make sure that rice productivity increases, so that instead of importing 90% of the rice, we actually are self-sufficient in rice. Because the reason why the currency is falling down is because we are importing more than we are exporting. We are running a trade deficit. In fact, right now, the trade deficit that is currently in the Gambia is far higher than it has ever been since the country got independent. Our trade deficit is running close to $700 million US. The only reason our currency hasn't collapsed totally is the points that they raise, the importance of remittances, because we are getting close to $1 billion from Gambians abroad. So right now, any government, the immediate effect you can do right now is address production in groundnut. First, before you go to even processing.
How do you address it?
I'm coming to that. I can talk about it in a general technical term, but I'm also a farmer. I have worked in projects where we have increased rice productivity in other countries. It is not rocket science. It is not any reinvention of the wheel. It is tried and tested. In the Gambia, what is the most difficult thing if you want to grow rice anywhere, especially lowland, is the development cost. Land development cost is the most important thing. But this is precisely where government intervention is needed. Today, if you want to develop just 1 hectare of land in a wetland area, it requires thousands of US dollars. No farmer has the means to do that. Who has the means of doing that? It requires heavy machinery, caterpillars, bulldozers. But instead of bringing tractors and distributing them based on political affiliation, a strategic investment in the machinery, land reforms to make sure that that land, because once, rice cultivation requires very specific kinds of development. Once you do that, you are going to give a boost, immediate boost to productivity.
You've made your point.
So,
Thank you very much. Honorable.
Yes,
Now, PDOIS.
Yes, you're talking about immediate.
Yes.
When we say immediate, it's like you are talking about 2 years, 3 years.
Yes.
From my perspective, like I said, we must start everything from scratch. Because what has happened, like you said, from 1965, in fact, there is a break. From 1965, things were going on in the same trajectory, but 1985 is where there was a break because of the ERP. And that's the time when the IMF and all these people came in to say Gambia must pay its loans now. And then going into that negotiation, they accepted the Economic Recovery Program, which was only meant to really pay loans. And that becomes a culture for us now. Up to now, we continue to have such programs with the IMF. Instead of coming out of that program and then implementing a productive-based program, we continue to just take loans from IMF and pay. Take loans from IMF and other countries and pay. And
Where would you get the capital to do what you want to do without
I told you here that your budget is giving you $50 billion. But if you look into that budget, I would have brought the estimates for you.
But some
you
of
will
it,
see that.
a grant, we get grants and that sort of thing.
Those
Isn't
grants,
that part of the
I'm
budget?
telling you, you are supposed to get $15 billion this year from grants. But there is grant weariness. Because this year, out of that 15 billion, you are just likely to have maybe 3 billion or 2 billion or 4 billion. So which means that's not going to take you out. But now we have a mining sector. We have a mining sector which should give us the sovereign wealth fund at Batukunku, Sanyang, and Katong. In that mining district, you have lithium, you have titanium, you have uranium, traces, and so on and so forth. But that place, all that we get for the last year was $2 million.
How much do you think we should be able to?
I believe that if you engage professionals, even if they are not here, you engage people who actually understand what mining is about, what minerals are about, mineral resources are about, and then you contract them, and they help the state to actually look into that area, assess it to the extent that they look at it and say, well, if you do it this way, you are going to maximize your gains. And then there will be value for money. There we'll be able to get, more income from that source and be able to continue with our investment.
So you believe that we should have more?
Yeah,
not that we have any evidence about how much more we can have.
Yeah, we could have.
Now you're talking, Mr. Koran.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think economic problems are always, ever been part of human history.
Yeah.
And they will continue to be part of human history. For any government, at any point in time, when you do an assessment, you have to look at what are your options and what are your opportunities and resources that you have. Now, I have a very big skepticism about the commitment of the current government because, number one point, the way I see them disposing of government land, right, puts doubt in me whether they are actually committed to encouraging local industries in order to allow them to be established. I think they're looking at more like national resources in terms of immediate cash returns rather than strategic plans for the future. Because most of the industries now, right, need to be revitalized. Particularly, the agricultural, industry, as the honorables have just stated.
But with the cost of living, your short-term plans, that's what we want to know. What would it be?
The cost of living, if you look at the cost of living right now, I always say food inflation, cash power, right, rentals, and transportation. Now, food inflation, you have to produce.
But that's
locally.
That's a longer term.
That's no. I mean, not every part.
Not every 2-3 years.
Yes, not every part of food production is of the longer term. What he's saying, preparing the land and getting it ready is just a seasonal thing. It's not a yearly plan. And the next point I said is, what do you call it in housing? The Gambia has a huge housing problem, and it's a factor to the inflation. Because when the landlords feel pressed, they will increase price. And when they increase their rentals, everything increases. The shopkeeper will increase straight away his prices without even asking you, just because the landlord increased price. So what is the problem of renting and housing in this country? The government, since 1980s, after Bakote, the government has taken its hand out of providing housing for the low income earners.
So you think it
cost
seems
of living, how
granted.
will cost of living go down when the place where you lay your head is becoming a problem for you?
That's it. I've seen your link,
Yeah.
but how do you respond to the other idea? I thought that you were going to touch on that.
Yeah.
That housing is not really regulated. Landlords can do whatever they want.
Yes.
You're blaming the economy,
Yeah.
but perhaps there's another aspect that one must also tackle. One must also deal with because it's unregulated.
If they talk about regulating landlords, I think it is proper, but I don't want to look at it like you're coming up with price controls which you know will never succeed. The Honorable just talked about the ERP in 1985. One of the main reasons when ERP, at the time it was coming, the government realized that if you bring in price controls, you will fail. No matter what the economic adjustments you have, you must let the market flow free. The reason where I would like you to focus, Butch, is the fact that housing, right, is a demand and supply problem. You are trying to address the demand side. Why don't you look at the supply side and then provide the market? The government enters the market and provide housing. A single Singapore in 1965.
Shouldn't the economy deal with both? Mr. Gajugo, you can come in here, both supply and demand side.
No, I mean, he's quite right. I mean, there is a demand and supply side. And on the supply side, there's been completely no activity. In fact, the only thing that the government is doing when they first came is allocating land to National Assembly members and government officials. The amount of land allocated that people have documented is in hundreds. But I wanted to address another point that he started. I mean, when that was happening, how much land has been allocated to low-income people? None. But the thing about cost of living, just to add the thing, I mean, to sort of point out how, on the point you are, this is the key point, is the import dependence. And normally when we talk about imports, we talk about food mainly. But he mentioned something that's very important, which is energy. Right now, where is most of the electricity that we are consuming in Gambia coming from? It's coming from Senegal. The amount we importing from Senegal is twice the amount we generate locally. But how do we pay for that electricity? It is import. We're importing it. We must pay in foreign currency, which is safer. And the more that we pay in import of electricity, the more the value of the dalasi goes down. As the value of the dalasi goes down and we import more rice, it keeps on. So it's a self-reinforcing factor. So these two most important items, food, energy, the very strategy of the government, which is instead of boosting local production, they are relying on foreign imports. They are actually directly contributing to the rising cost of living.
The right point for me to bring in my panelists. Mr. Kula, you can come back. You come back later. Come on,
no problem. I think for me, like I always said, I mean, the issue of cost of living is going to be one of the key determinant factors in our next election. People are going to vote based on some of these key issues. I mean, cost of living is an issue. And then if you ask me how can we help address this, I think for me, the first thing that government should do is to see how best they can reduce, I mean, the food import cost. Yes, in the past we have had the Gambia Revenue Authority said, okay, they have tried by all means to ensure they're able to remove or perhaps, you know, reduce, I mean, unnecessary taxes and duties, I mean, for most of these, I mean, essential, I mean, food items such as rice and oil and all that. But is that really reflecting in the market, you know, with all these waivers and all that? That is something that we should ask ourselves. But equally also, government, for me, should really work on ensuring that, you know, they have that prudent government spending and borrowing, because it's very important. How government spend is very important.
In fact, I'm not cutting, but that's key, because the deficit that the professor mentioned is one of the key consistent problems in this economy. The overspending makes them borrow. And the more they borrow, the more they have to increase the interest rates. As the cost of borrowing goes up, investment becomes discouraging. And once investment, you can't borrow when the cost of borrowing is high. And we have what we call the crowding out effect, you know. When government goes to the market to borrow, it crowds out every other borrower. So all the banks want to lend to the government. And what do they use this for? The judicious expenditure. They're buying very expensive cars with that money.
Your point.
Yeah,
So here, I wanted again to put three of them on spot again. Now, the government of the Gambia can say...
You can only put government people on spot right now.
And they run away.
We are not on
Okay, so
No, we cannot say that. There's no evidence to say that.
Okay, so Dr. Kura, Mr. Gajigo, and Honorable Ture, let's say the government admitted that it could not generate enough resources locally. That is why, okay, to make reference to the social safety net project they have with World Bank in order to reduce poverty and increase the standard of living of Gambians, but also they could equally make reference to the creation of the social protection, the Gambia Social Protection Department, around turntable to say we have realized, the cost of living crisis in the Gambia. That is why we are doing all this in order to alleviate poverty or increase the standard of living. So what would a UDP, GFA, and PDYS government do different in order to give us such tangible results?
May I come in to address that?
Yes.
Because I just happen to have written an article addressing this very point that the minister made on West Coast Radio.
Yes. I
wrote a whole article about it.
Okay.
So for me, in order to really get at the heart of why this government is failing, take them at their, the part that they're actually congratulating themselves with. First of all, the debt is currently at about $140 billion.
Yes.
And the minister made a couple of points. He said they inherited a lot of that debt,
yes.
Number one. Number two,
yes.
A lot of it was due to state-owned enterprises.
Yes.
And number three, they had development expenditures. Let's address them one by one.
Yes, so he said they inherited about 58 million. About 58 billion from the previous government. And they had 28 billion liabilities from state-owned enterprises because of public guarantees on debt.
So let's take him at his word.
Yes.
The previous administration of President Dawda Jawara and Yahya Jammeh, they ruled for how long? Almost combined about 50 years.
Yes.
During that time, they accumulated a combined liability of about $60 billion. Currently, after only 10 years, this government more than doubled that. They're now at 140. So within 10 years, they accumulated twice as much as two previous governments that ruled for 50 years. That was already to settle that.
Is it a combination of the
entire debt? It's cumulative. Yes, total. So in 2016, the total debt of the country was around 60 billion. Currently, it is 140. So what they accumulated over that time period is more than what they found there.
But sorry, Doctor. He made an argument there, a strong argument to say in 2016, 2017, the debt that was recorded was 46 million, but there was a 12.5 million that was not recorded.
So I'm looking at the total. Let me come to that part. So basically, I'm coming to that. So I'm even granting him that. I'm not even saying 40, I'm saying 60. Let's grant him that unrecorded one. So they found 60, they brought it to 140. So what they've added in 10 years is far more than what was accumulated in 5 times that period, number one. Number two, they said they have been doing development expenditures. Let's take at the sectors that they are most proud of, electricity. Most of these projects that they are doing on electricity are all externally financed. But how much did this government lose to one single company over a 7-year period between 2017 and 2024? Car Powership, we were buying 30 megawatts of power from that company for $30 million every single year for 7 years. Over a 7-year period, the Gambia government paid over $200 million to Car Powership. And that wasn't a power plant, it was a floating ship, and they've already left. That 200 million, if you had used that to build power plant in the country, we would be exporting power today to Senegal and Guinea. But instead, we lost over $200 million US. That's over $12 billion. We lost that. Let me give you an analogy here. It's as if I build a house that costs $5 million, and you came to rent that house, and I'm charging you $5 million every month. In other words, what you are paying on an annual basis to rent my house is the cost of that house. I've worked on many electricity projects. The 30 megawatts we were buying from Car Power Ship on that ship, it takes 30 million to build it. So what we were paying annually to that company, we were spending that annually. So after 7 years, we lost $200 million US, and we had no power. And this same government now is spending how many million per year importing electricity? So that government, if it tells you it is using money for investment, what in reality what is happening is they are spending a lot of money, but it's just purely recurrent expenditures. There is not a single investment, because since 2017
the question comes back. You've made your point, and then we'll do this. The question comes back. Absolutely. The question comes back. You will have your turn. You will have your turn. You will have your turn. I want to link it to something else. We are coming towards the end.
Yes.
You three. UDP, GFA, and PDOIS, you appear to be agreeing on so much. I'm wondering, are you going to form an alliance? I wonder, what are the differences economically in your economic programs? How do you think that you're different from PDOIS, sir?
No, I think. Is it? I just spoke now. Okay.
It's all right, then he will come back. And then we'll bring in UDP.
No problem.
What are the economic differences?
Yes.
If any?
Listen, I can talk about what the economic platform of GFA is. Incidentally, we will be launching our manifesto this Saturday, where we are going to yes.
So let's change it. Why should I believe in your economic program?
Good question, thank you. Because the fundamental problem that is facing us here, most fundamental cost of living, if you ask the Gambian people, is the cost of basic food items, the cost of things as basic as energy, the things that we need to do. Those are things we have spelled out in our manifesto, which is the case of increasing agricultural productivity, and the things that need to do, again, for the sake of time, I'm not going to repeat what I've said before, but I've mentioned that before.
Okay, top three priorities.
Yes. Basically, food security, economic revitalization, human capital development, but also the systemic environment that we are in. The pervasive corruptions that make the waste, an everyday occurrence, you need to address that. These are our 4 pillars.
Absolutely. Maybe the final segment would be the other part. We've been talking about policy, but we've also got governance issues. What are your plans?
Now, I want to say that you have the economy is number one when it comes to consideration of anything in this country. And then you will see that you have different sectors. He was mentioning the informal sector.
Yes.
That needs to be developed. You have the public sector, which is neglected. Because what he is talking about is investment in the public sector, which is neglected. The private sector, everybody is expecting the private sector to do these investments. But the private sector does not have the capacity. So now you have the public sector, which is collecting all these tax and non-tax and loans from the people, need to do some investment in the productive sector. You understand? And then for us, key among our solutions is to have a cooperative sector, which will allow all these sectors to work side by side with each other, because all of them are adding value to the development of the economy, and therefore none of them should be left behind. All of them should be taken care of. So which means that the cooperative sector that we are talking about will take care of the informal person. The informal person can come there, but the big person also who is taking our products from Gambia that we processed, and taking it outside, also need to be supported through that cooperative process. You understand? The state will guarantee them for them to get the loans to be able to export our crops from here to outside and get the foreign exchange. Now you have the public sector, 15 billion. If you look at the $50 billion budget, you will see that So many things are there that you can beat out. You don't need them. You know, you don't need to necessarily have all those things there. And then you'll be able to maximize gains to be able to have money to invest in the things that we are talking about.
Honorable point, Mr. Kurang.
Well, I think the UDP always believes in grassroots initiative, community initiative. That's reflected in the party structure, and it's reflected in the way the party is financed and run. You know, and I think there is no other way you're going to run the government different from how you run in the political party. If you have faith in your party, that your party depends on its members to sponsor the party and then to grow up the party, definitely that is how you would, you know, run the government. That would be a self-reliant government. What the Barrow government lacks, and that's what we're going to have, is the belief in the people of this country, that we can create our own jobs, that we can grow our industries, that we can process our agricultural products, that we can build our own banks and run our own banks, that we can run our own institutions and manufacturing factories. I think that's what we believe in UDP. We believe in the Gambian. And we believe that when the UDP takes over, this country will be run by the people. We will not sell the land.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much. Gentlemen, we've come to the end.
For me, finally, I mean, to help address, I mean, the current state of our debt, I think the government should do more to be able to improve, I mean, our domestic revenue. Yes, the Gambia Revenue Authority, for me, if you ask me, I will tell you, it's one of the most performing institutions in this country in terms of collecting revenue for national development. And I think, you know, they need to be empowered more to ensure we are able to collect more domestic revenue for our national development, because we can't continue depending on loans, I mean, for our development, looking at the current debt that we have.
Mr. Dabo, finally?
They just empower more, and people should be willing to pay their taxes as well.
Yeah, so I believe we've almost agreed that there is a cost of living crisis in the Gambia. So, and then for us, our job is to scrutinize to see what else can the opposition offer, different from what we have, to increase the standard of living in the Gambia. And I think it has been a very good discussion, Mr. Mboj. Thank you once again for the moderation.
Absolutely. We've come to the very end. Thank you very much there, Ibrahim Adabo of QTV, and sitting next to you. And we had there Mr. Mamadi Kurang of UDP, Aliu Cisse of QTV, Mr. Dr. Gajigo, Usman Gajigo of Gambia for All Economists, and Honorable Swaibu Ture, National Member for Wuli East. And to our viewers, thank you very much. I hope that you had an engaging viewing. Until next time, goodbye.